We're going to be in chapters 1 through 3 tonight. And Hosea is unique among the prophets. Hosea was not a temple priest as much as a lay prophet. He wasn't a prophet associated with the temple or the palace. He was a prophet who was told to do a specific task, and that task illustrates the relationship of God with his people. Now, Hosea lived somewhere in the timeline in the northern kingdom of Israel, sometime during the reign of Jeroboam II, right around between 955 and 922 BC. I'm sorry, 755 to 722 BC. 955 would have put him right around the time of Solomon. That's not correct. So he was around 755 to 722 BC. That's when he lived and when he prophesied. But his life is a prophecy. And we're going to take a look at chapters 1 through 3 tonight and kind of figure out what's going on with him, because there's a great message in these first 3 chapters about the covenant love of God. And this is what the first 3 chapters are all about, is this covenant love of God. And in chapter 1, verse 2, when the Lord first spoke through Hosea, the Lord said to Hosea, "Go take yourself a wife of harlotry and have children of harlotry. For the land commits flagrant harlotry, forsaking the Lord." So, in other words, he wants Hosea to go find a prostitute and marry her. And there's a real poignant message in here. God is saying, you're the people that I have made a covenant with. I'm going to compare that to marriage. And you are committing adultery with me. And Hosea is going to live this out in his life. So Hosea, go find a woman who is unfaithful by nature and marry her and have children. And it's interesting that he names the children. God tells him what to name the children. The first child born they name him Jezreel. And Jezreel is a town where there was a massacre of sorts. And God is giving the people a sign that he knows what's going on. He knows what happened there, and he's going to repay what took place in Jezreel. So the first child of Hosea and his wife, the Gomer, who was the daughter of Diblaim, their first child is named Jezreel to point out this atrocity that took place in that town. Now, the second child is a daughter. In verse 6, she conceived again and gave birth to a daughter, and the Lord said to him, "Name her Lo-Ruhamah, for I will no longer have compassion on the house of Israel." And Lo-Ruhamah means no compassion. The word lo means no, or none. And Ruhamah means compassion. And God says, I will no longer have compassion on you. That's what the covenant of God with his people was all about, is you are sinful and separated from me, but I'm going to give you an avenue back. I'm going to pave a pathway for you to come back to me, and I'm going to have this covenant with you called the law of Moses. And God builds covenants with his people throughout the Bible. He had a covenant with Adam. He had a covenant with Noah. He had a covenant with Moses. He had a covenant with David. So we are in this passage under the Davidic covenant. The covenant of the law was still in effect, but there is a covenant with the people for them to be faithful and to worship God. And they have turned their backs on him, and they have gone after false gods of the people around him, the Baal, the Ashtoreth, the Molech, these other gods of the Canaanites and the people who lived around them. Now, I wanted to point out Asherah. Asherah was one of these ancient gods that the people went after. You know, a couple times a year, my calendar on my phone points out to me that there are holy days that are still celebrated to Asherah. Is that crazy? This is an Old Testament pagan deity that separated the people of God from him, and their holy days are still showing up on my calendar on my phone. I don't want them there, but they show up there every year. It's crazy that we are still celebrating that. And then in verse 9, the Lord said, or verse 8, and when she had weaned Lo-Ruhamah, she conceived and gave birth to a son, and the Lord said, name him Lo-Ami, for you are not my people, and I am not your God. The Hebrew word Am is the word for people or nation. And he's saying, you are not my nation any longer. You are not my people anymore. And then he says in verse 10, yet the number of the sons of Israel will be like the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured or numbered. And in the place where it is said to them, you are not my people, it will be said to them, you are the sons of the living God. So you see this promise that comes with it. God is going to discipline his people for their unfaithfulness, but there's a promise that comes with it. And he says, and the sons of Judah and the sons of Israel will be gathered together, and they will appoint for themselves one leader, and they will go up from the land, for great will be the day of Jezreel. And then in chapter 2, we see the faithfulness of God as juxtaposed with the unfaithfulness of the people. He says in chapter 2, verse 1, say to your brothers, Ami, and to your sisters, Ruhamah. So there will come a day where there will be this faithfulness. They will be the people of God. God will have compassion on them. So that day is coming. But in chapter 2, verse 6, there comes a scene where God says this. He says, behold, I will hedge up her way with thorns, and I will build a wall against her so she cannot find her paths. She will pursue her lovers, but she will not overtake them, and she will seek them, but will not find them. Then she will say, I will go back to my first husband, for it was better for me than now. So what God is saying is he's going to make this pathway of her to her lovers lined with thorns. And to chase them, it's going to hurt. It's going to bring pain to her life to commit adultery with her husband. Now, I came across this really fascinating illustration of this. You know, I when it's cold, I wear a sweater. I wear a sweater almost every night. I like my sweaters. They keep me warm during the day. I always wear short sleeve shirts, but the sweaters keep me warm. But imagine if I had the sweater, God can give me warmth, okay? God, let's say that the promise that God gives to me is that he will keep me warm whenever it gets cold. But every morning I wake up and I put on a sweater to keep myself warm. Well, that's offensive to God. God has told me, I will keep you warm, but you put on a sweater every time you wake up every morning. And now you're wearing 2 sweaters just in case. And then today I see you with 3 sweaters on. You know, that's showing a lack of faith in God. I don't trust him. You see, a broken covenant with God, it shows that that intimacy is gone, that trust in God is gone, and we reject his love. It's showing rejection, a violation of trust, and a betrayal of the intimacy with God. And when I put on that sweater every day, I'm telling God, I don't trust you. I reject the idea that you can even keep me warm, and I'm going to betray you by wearing a sweater, not only wearing a sweater, but a sweater that is sewn by your mortal enemy. So how does God deal with that? He lines my pathway with thorns. And as I walk down the pathway, those thorns, they keep snagging at my sweater and tearing at it and ripping it apart. And it's painful. My sweaters are destroyed. My arms end up with scabs. But in the end, I turn around and I go back to God for him and to fulfill his promise to me again. This is what God's plan is for Gomer and for Hosea. She's going to have to walk that pathway with thorns before she understands about my covenant with her. This is God's message to the nation of Israel. You have separated yourselves from me. You have chased after false gods. You have rejected my love. You have betrayed the intimacy of our relationship. You have rejected, you violated my trust. But I'm not going to destroy you. I'm going to restore you. Remember when we talked about this in the letters of Paul about church discipline? When things go wrong in a church, there needs to be church discipline. Things need to be brought back into order, and the authority of God has to be upheld, and the church leaders have to be respected and honored. And when you go through church discipline, the rule is that all church discipline should be restorative in nature. The goal isn't to run somebody out of the church. The goal is to restore them to Christ. But sometimes that has to be done by closing the door of the church to them. Sometimes there have to be thorns that scar their arms and rip that sweater off of them that they're wearing. This has to be the way the church goes. We have to bring those people back to Christ. We don't want to chase them out of the church. Martin Luther pointed this out about Hosea and Gomer. He said that the issue with Israel, the sin of Israel, wasn't that they ignored God. They were still worshiping God in their temple, but they were welcoming all these other gods to come in with them. A covenant relationship is an exclusive relationship. They hadn't so much rejected the idea of God as much as they rejected the idea of God is their only God. They wanted to cover all their bases. I've run into this in church ministry, that there are some people who they just want they want to be Catholic, they want to be Protestant, they want to have their feet in the Nation of Islam. They want to be friendly with the Jehovah's Witnesses, with the Mormons. They want to cover all their bases, right? Just in case. But that's not how it works. I remember somebody said, I can't remember who it was. I wish I remembered this name, but somebody famous was dying. And somebody said, have you rejected the devil? And he looked at the minister who was talking to him and he said, this is no time for me to be making enemies. And it's a funny story, but it's sad in the same respect, because you can't be friends of the world. You can't be friends of Satan and be a friend of God. When you become a friend of the world, you become an enemy of God. And God wants your lone exclusive relationship with him. He has a covenant with each one of us. So what happens here is in chapter 2 we read that Gomer was going after these other men because of the gifts that they would bring her, new wine and oil and stuff like that. And in verse 18, God says to Hosea, chapter 2, verse 18, in that day I will also make a covenant for them with the beasts of the field, the birds of the sky, and the creeping things of the ground, and I will abolish the bow and the sword and war from the land, and will make them lie down in safety. I will betroth you to me. Yes, I will betroth you to me in righteousness and in justice, in loving kindness and in compassion, and I will betroth you to me in faithfulness. Then you will know the Lord. And he goes on to say in verse 3, then the Lord said to me, go again, Love a woman who is loved by her husband, yet an adulteress. Even as the Lord loves the sons of Israel, though they turn to other gods and love raisin cakes. So I bought her for myself for 15 shekels of silver and a homer and half a barley. And I said to her, you shall stay with me for many days. You shall not play the harlot, nor shall you have a man, so I will be also to you. Hosea had to go and buy his wife back on the auction block. She was being sold to other men, and he had to go and bring silver to buy her back as his wife. And this is totally the story of redemption in the New Testament, that we have made a covenant with God, but we have violated that. We have rejected God. We have gone after our own ideas of what love and mercy is about. We've sought the love of the world over the love of God. And he bought us back. He sent his son to pay the price for us, to have us back. So you can totally see the idea of redemption and salvation in the book of Hosea. So God doesn't want you and me to be defined by our worst chapter, right? We all make mistakes. We all err. We all fall short in our pursuit of God. And our stories, they all show betrayal. They all show God's pursuit of us and his redemption in buying us back. But those words in chapter 2, verse 19 should ring true with all of us. I will betroth you to me forever. I will betroth you to me in righteousness and in justice, in loving kindness and in faithfulness. That's what God is all about. So we see the idea of redemption here. We're going to take a look at the next three chapters, chapters 4 through 6, and we're going to see some amazing pictures in here of the rebellion of the people against God, but the restoration of God, bringing them back. We're going to take a look at these two famous verses tomorrow. Chapter 6, verse 6, rather than sacrifice. And then the knowledge of God rather than burnt offerings. In chapter 6, verse 1, come, let us return to the Lord, for he has torn us, but he will heal us. He has wounded us, but he will bandage us. That's really awesome stuff. So, all right, so we'll come back here tomorrow night and talk about chapters 4 through 6, and we'll see what Hosea has for us to read. So that's it for tonight. God bless each and every one of you, and we'll see you here next time on Digging Deeper Daily. God bless.